Picture this. You walk into a tennis stadium expecting a competitive match. Two talented players, a real battle, maybe some long rallies, maybe a few momentum swings. You grab your drink, settle into your seat, and then 30 minutes later, it's already over. Not because someone got injured, not because someone tanked the match, but because one player walked onto that court carrying a weapon so perfectly designed to destroy the other that the result was written long before the first serve. That is exactly what is about to happen when Alex faces Leylah Fernandez. And if you think that sounds like hyperbole, stick with me, because by the end of this breakdown, you're going to understand exactly why some of the sharpest minds in tennis are not just predicting a win for Alex, they are predicting a complete and total dismantling. Let's start with who Alex actually is right now, because a lot of people still picture the teenager they first heard about. The Junior Grand Slam champion. The Filipino prodigy carrying an entire nation's dreams on her young shoulders. That girl was special. But this woman? She is something else entirely. Alex has gone through a transformation at the Rafa Nadal Academy in Mallorca that you don't fully appreciate until you see the footage side by side. This isn't just a player who got older and stronger. This is a player who got rebuilt from the ground up with a very specific and very dangerous philosophy. When you train inside that academy, you are absorbing the DNA of Rafael Nadal's tennis.
This is the story of the day the
You are
WTA
learning that winning isn't
lost
just about
control
hitting
of
great
its
shots.
own narrative.
It's about grinding
And the
your
player
opponent
at the
into
center
dust.
of it all
It's about
never
making
raised
every
her
single
voice
rally feel
once.
like a war they cannot win. It's about sending such relentless, heavy, violently spinning balls at someone's body that their timing breaks down, their footwork collapses, and somewhere around game 5 or 6, their belief starts to crumble right along with everything else. That is what Alex brings to the court now. Her forehand is not just powerful. It is heavy in a way that casual fans don't fully understand. When that ball lands, it doesn't just bounce. It bites into the court and rockets upward with a kind of vicious topspin that turns comfortable strikes into desperate scrambles. She doesn't blow opponents off the court with flat pace. She buries them under the weight of it. And that distinction matters enormously when you start thinking about who is standing on the other side of this net. Because Leylah Fernandez is one of the most fascinating and gutsy competitors in women's tennis. Nobody who watched her run through the 2021 US Open will ever forget what she did. She knocked out 3 of the biggest names in the game back-to-back, running on pure nerve and timing, and an almost supernatural ability to take the ball insanely early, redirect it with perfect precision, and completely rob her opponents of any rhythm. That was real. That was not a fluke. That was a player operating at a level where her specific style of tennis became borderline unstoppable for 2 weeks. But here's the thing about Leylah's game that nobody wants to say out loud. It works brilliantly against a specific type of opponent, and it falls apart against a very different type. Her entire system, the early ball taking, the sharp redirection, the lightning-fast footwork, all of it depends on one condition. The incoming ball needs to sit somewhere in her strike zone. Somewhere around waist height where she can step in, load up, and do her thing. Now, ask yourself what happens when someone starts firing heavy topspin into her corners that kicks up past her shoulders. What happens when the weight of those incoming shots physically pushes her 2, 3, sometimes 4 feet behind where she wants to be standing? The answer is that her whole system breaks. She can't step in because there's no room. She can't redirect cleanly because the ball isn't cooperating. And she doesn't have the raw upper body strength to muscle heavy topspin back deep from that far behind the baseline consistently over an entire match. This is not a knock on Leylah's work ethic or her heart. It's just physics. And Alex's game is almost perfectly calibrated to expose exactly this. But wait, because there's a layer to this matchup that most people completely gloss over, and it might actually be the most brutal part of the whole picture. Leylah Fernandez is left-handed. And for most of her career, that has been one of her biggest advantages. In the WTA, lefties are relatively rare, and Leylah has made a living off that. Her wide sliding serve on the ad side pulls right-handed opponents completely off the court and opens up their backhand like a door she can walk right through. Her cross-court forehand hits into the weakest side of most right-handed players. The geometry just works in her favor again and again. Except Alex is also left-handed. And suddenly, everything Leylah counts on geometrically stops working. That same serve she uses to drag right-handers off court? Against Alex, It flies straight into her forehand, which is the most dangerous shot she owns. The cross-court forehand that normally targets a weaker backhand? It feeds directly into Alex's solid, reliable two-handed backhand. Every trick, every built-in structural advantage that Leylah carries into matches against right-handed players is completely neutralized before she even bounces the ball for the first point. She is stripped of her weapons and forced into a neutral baseline war against someone who hits a significantly heavier ball. That is not a position Leylah wants to be in. And knowing that, the psychological dimension of this match becomes fascinating. Because here is something that gets overlooked in tennis analysis all the time. The score at the end reflects not just the strokes that were hit, but the mental state of the two people hitting them. Leylah has been chasing that 2021 version of herself for years now. Every time she walks onto a court, there is some part of her that is measuring herself against that run, wondering when the magic will click back into place, carrying that invisible weight of expectation. That creates a very specific kind of tension that you can sometimes see in the way she plays tight moments. And Alex is the absolute opposite energy. She is the hunter. She has nothing to defend and everything to gain. She has the Philippines behind her, a nation that has waited generations for a player like her, and she steps onto the baseline with the calm, terrifying confidence of someone who trusts every single weapon she has. When a player like that smells blood early in the first set, when they sense the opponent is struggling to find answers, they don't get cautious. They accelerate. They go for the throat. Now, add one more layer. Alex's second serve pressure is going to be relentless. Leylah's second serve has always been a point where aggressive returners can do damage. It lacks the kind of heavy penetration that keeps returners honest, and it tends to sit up invitingly for anyone willing to step in and take a big cut. Alex will absolutely step in. She will devour those second serves from the very first game, turning Leylah's serve into something she has to fight to survive rather than a weapon she can use to set up the point. And the cruel irony is that once that pressure builds, first serve percentage drops. Because when you feel like a missed first serve means immediate punishment, you start trying to be too precise, and precision under pressure is the first thing that goes. So let's trace how this actually plays out on the court in real time. Alex starts by hammering heavy topspin into Leylah's corners, pushing her back. Leylah tries to hold her ground and take the ball early, but she's hitting half volleys off dipping topspin instead of the clean ball she needs. Some go into the net. Some pop up short. When she pops it short, Alex moves forward and punishes it with the kind of clinical efficiency you only develop by spending years inside the toughest training environment in the sport. Leylah retreats slightly. Alex's ball gets heavier. The rallies get longer. Leylah's legs get heavier. Her micro adjustments, those tiny rapid steps that let her take the ball on the rise, start arriving half a second late. And in professional tennis, half a second is the entire match. By game 5 or 6, it's not a question of if the wheels come off. It's just a question of how loudly they clatter to the floor. The media will tell you to watch for Leylah's resilience. They will frame this as a story about a fighter refusing to quit, about heart triumphing over power. And look, Leylah is genuinely one of the most competitive players on tour. She doesn't give up. But competition doesn't rewrite physics. Refusing to quit doesn't solve the problem of being tactically checkmated at every single turn, of having your serve geometry neutralized, your timing disrupted, your baseline position stolen point after point. Alex is not coming to this match to have a competitive battle. She is coming to deliver a statement. She is arriving at this moment in her career as something that the WTA has simply not seen from this part of the world before, a fully developed, physically imposing, tactically sophisticated, mentally fearless competitor who hits the ball like a freight train wrapped in topspin. For Leylah, this match is going to be a painful education in how quickly the game evolves around you. The players coming up behind the established stars right now are not just talented. They are stronger. They are heavier, they are more physically prepared than any generation before them. And when you build your game around timing and redirection, someone who removes your timing and makes redirection impossible is your worst nightmare walking. That is Alex in this matchup. That is the reality the data points to. That is why the people who study this sport at the deepest level are not hedging, they are guaranteeing. So tell me what you think. Does Alex walk through this in 30 minutes the way the analysts are predicting, or does Layla have something up her sleeve that nobody is seeing? Drop it in the comments, make the argument, let's have the conversation. Hit subscribe if you want the breakdowns that actually go this deep, and I will see you in the next one.